got up early. Just doing that for a change.
Jeff,
Videographer here.
you want to tell us something about the ride we're taking today and the tour we're taking today?
Sure, we're going to the number 9 coal mine in Lansford, Pennsylvania, and we're going to have about 9 riders today. Nice sunny day. We're ready to go.
Looking forward to it.
There you go. And a few words. 17-mile fill up, so I should be good. Morning. Morning.
We have some unenlightened Harley Davidson riders with us today, but they are welcome nevertheless.
Yes.
Our guest Bill.
Hi, how you doing? It's my cousin Jerry. Steve. Steve. Joe. Figured I'd park and then no parking, so.
That's what stripes mean. Motorcycles park here.
I think we stole a miner. Occasionally.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock before we get started. I just want to mention before we walk down to get on the train, there's some jackets here, hard hats if you wish to use them. Feel free. It's comfortable 50 degrees within the mine. There is a water drop from spot to spot, you know, coming down off the ceiling. It's what mines are. Other than that, I can get you down at the car down there. I can get you loaded up and head on in. Cool. Okay.
Very well.
Give you an idea, yeah. Huh? Give you an idea. It gives you an idea, right? Yep.
The mine itself, this is the oldest continually operated anthracite mine in the world, and it's the longest pourable mine. It's like at about 168 years. So there's a very, very long history with this mine. We didn't forget about you. First thing I'd like to mention to you, we're currently 1,600 feet within the mountain. These tunnels go for miles and miles and miles, just for conversation. And we're at a height of about 900 foot depth. So this is kind of like solid ground above our heads. This is called the drift tunnel. When this tunnel was placed in here, actually what you did not notice, this is 8 foot higher at this elevation than it was on the side.
Don't leave us.
Don't be leaving us down. See you in an hour or two. The tunnel was placed in on the drift elevation. In the early days, they didn't use pumps basically to remove the water from the mine. The water flows downhill, so they made this higher. What they would do from the other levels of the mine, they would pump it to this level. At this level, gravity would do the feed and take it out of the mine. Second reason they did it this way is you have to remember the time frame back to the Civil War days. Everything was mule powered. The mules could pull a heavy loaded coal car downhill and uphill. So they used gravity to help the mules take it down. The mules could bring empty coal cars back in. There were the two main reasons. This area here is called the Code Devils. The shafts which are up behind me here are unique to this mine, and what this particular piece of machinery did, there's a small little dolly cart that sits in here within the unit. The railroad tracks that we rode in on are basically a little bit covered over for stone in here because for tour purposes. But within those tracks, there's a second set of tracks that this dolly ran on. So an operator would actually have it out around some sheaves, take it back down, and then he would hook it to the full coal cars on the elevators. With the levers, they would just run the levers, pull those coal cars up to here. That's where the mule boy would basically hook a mule to the cart, take it out to the breaker. At one time, this was steam powered. Later time, as you can see, it's still old though. In the 1930s, 31 expansion, they placed electricity into the mines here. That's when they had actual lights at that time. I'd like to explain to everybody in this area, the first thing I'd like to point out is the thermometer right here on the wall. You see it's 50 degrees. It's 50 degrees year round in here because of our depth. If you go to lower levels within the mine, there's going to be a temperature change. The deeper you go, the warmer it's going to get. Here it's 50 degrees, whether it's 100 degrees outside, which in the sun it might be that today, or in January, or it's 5 degrees below zero, or 5 degrees, it's going to stay 50 degrees in here, constantly. This particular little building or room behind me at one time was a maintenance shop. This is basically the heart of the operations right here, what they would call like a choke point. Everything in and out of the mines rode this particular system. Anything that broke at the lower levels was brought to these shops on either side of the shafts here for repairs. Why take it all the way outside if you could fix it in here? If it didn't make any sense. So this was a work location for somebody for many, many years. there's a picture of a head frame over here on the left-hand side in blue. It's unique to this area here. It's one of the last few within the country that are still, it is on the surface above us. We are at a level of 190 feet below the surface. This elevator system here, an operator would actually sit above ground. From these two elevator carts here, up the shaft system, wire rope, wire cables went up around a pulley system to a drum roller. An operator would actually sit up there. If anybody pictured the hands that are on a clock, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what the operator's seeing up above. He would know which level the cars are at by that arrow indicator, 1, 2, 3, 4, which you might see maybe in an older elevator. Now all you have is flashing lights, you know, to know which floor you're on. In the beginning, since there was no communications at that time, for the instructions for the operator to move it up or move it down were steam blasts. Everything was steam. So they were one long blast for possibly shaft 1, you know, 2 long blasts for shaft 2, then a series of blasts after that, whether to take the cart up or take it down. What I would like to note on the top of these, there's bonnets above these cages here, right below the chains. They were placed in for safety for the operators that would actually ride these cars up and down, or these elevators up and down to different levels within the mine. As you can see over time, they did take a couple hits with some rocks coming down hitting them, because when the cars were on there, they were loaded till full. So if you got a stone or something or a big lump of rock come off of that, it was going down the shaft. They were there to prevent accidents. Underneath these bonnets, you could see the handholds like on our subway system or our, you know, San Francisco and the little cars out there, the little trolley cars. And that's where the riders would actually go down and back up. You know, that's how they got to their work locations. This particular mine was operating fully to 1972, mining coal on this level that we're at. 1962 was the last year that they stopped mining below this level. So these cars have been sitting here since 1962. Like I say, 1972 at that time, that's when the operation stopped and the mine basically closed down at that time. I'll mention a little bit about the levels here. We're on level 1, 190 feet below the surface. Level 2 is 200 feet below us. Level 3, 200 feet below that one. 4th level, again, 200 feet below that. So from the if you're up on the ground above, you're talking almost the height of the Eiffel Tower, and 100 feet within the Empire State Building for how deep this is for a height, just as a height comparison. Okay, folks, what we have here is, this is on the other side now. That's where they would unload them. This is where they would load them. This transfer car right here, this is the standard practice of the day. At one time within the valley, there was 5,000 of these units within the valley for transporting coal around the different areas. Coal breakers load them into the trains or within the mine. Within the mine, there was 1,200 of those cars in the heyday. Currently, we're down to the last 9. This is one of the last 9 cars that are here. All the other ones have been basically scrapped or, you know, lost to history, as they would say. Yeah. What you would do is an operator would actually stand at these levers down here, hook them to this side, and he could transfer, you know, shaft number 1 or shaft number 2, and basically drag them on to load them onto the, you know, the empty ones on the elevator cart to take them down where they went. And that's, like I say, it was steam power in the beginning. After that, like 31 or so, it became electric power. What you would have is drills. In the beginning, within the mine, they would go back to basics. A basic was you had a drill. I'm sorry, let me back up to the drill. Before you had a drill, you had basic, it was called a strike bar. If anybody knows what a diamond tip hammer drill is, you had a piece of steel with a hardened tip, possibly 6 or 8 foot long. You would hold it on your shoulder, you'd hold it up against the wall, your helper behind you would stand there and now slap that with a sledgehammer. Give it a quarter turn, you hit it again, give it a quarter turn, hit it. Everything was hand drilled to get into making your holes. So you did a lot of banging away, and you had to have a good guy that could know whose name standing behind you. As things progressed, in rock they would use those hardened sledgehammer, you know, strike bars. When you got the coal, which is a little bit softer, they would use basically what's called a U-brace drill. It was a U-bracket on it. A miner could basically have that around his chest, push against it, and almost like an old wooden auger, turn the crank with his helper, and that would rotate the drill bit. And then you would drill in 3, 4 feet, and whatever that you needed to get your holes in there. Once your holes replaced, you replace the charge in there, like the fuse, run, blow it out, and then keep on going. Later they had, in modern times, when they still use these, yet this is called a lift jack drill, a compressed air pressure would go into the bottom of the thing, help pushing it into the wall yourself, and you would just sit back here almost like a jackhammer, and now you would drill your holes in. Okay, we have here is called a mule way.
Yeah.
It was for one purpose, actually two purposes. We have a mule over here, to get him down to the lower levels, they would actually take him downhill. They would not want to waste production time by having a mule riding on the cart, and sometimes the mules didn't want to ride on them anyway. So what they did is they would take this way here is actually, this is a current hole vein. What they did is they cut this in here wide enough. It goes in, then it drops down at a 40-degree angle at about 150 feet. It would run downhill. Down there's a little bit of a turnaround, enough to get a mule to turn around, and they cut the hole coming back at a 90-degree, 180-degree turn. Down at another 40 degrees, dropping down another 150 feet. So it's just a little zig and a zag. Now you're down at the second level.
How'd they get the mules back up?
Same way. Miners,
They'd climb a 40-degree incline?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's
So they live here, or they went up for pasture?
the mules were basically taken out of the mine. There's a little basketball court. Once you exit the mine, to our right, about 200 or 300 yards.
They
that's
played
where
basketball?
The stable will be there. It's currently basketball. You ever hear donkey ball?
Generally good food?
But anyway, that's why they had this, and it was actually to get the miners down to the second, third, and fourth level. The miners were basically required to be at their work location when they were getting paid. So they would walk all the way there on their own time down, and that's where they went. So the miners would actually use this, and it was like illegal, only have one way of in and out of an area. So they had these mule ways cut in at various locations, so people could come up and go down, and actually mules would go down as needed wherever production was. There was basically very, very limited schooling. When the children were 7 years old, 8 years old, they became breaker boys. They would be working on, over in the pole breaker, they would sit on 5-inch boards in what was called a sluice way. The material would be coming down under their feet, and what they did by hand, they would be picking debris out of that stream. Whether it would be rocks, pieces of wood, shale, any debris that was not pure coal, they would stand there and they would pick this. Most of them at the day, I could say none of them had any fingernails, because when you're picking that stuff, your hands are getting banged all the time, and that was a price that they paid.
How old were they?
7 years old, 8 years old. That's why they have, if you look, there's like rules and regulations now, like if you want to, I don't know about newspapers, but if you want to work somewhere, you have to, kid has to go to schools, get the work papers, for child labor type deals.
Did they get paid?
Yeah, they got paid a lot, about 3 cents an hour.
Oh, boy.
Okay, when they were a little bit older, say 12 years old, because now you imagine the children are grown and they got a little bit bigger, they wouldn't fit in that location over there. They would offer up a job over here to become a mule boy. So you have a youngster with the mule, and what he did is he took the cars, full cars out. He would take empty cars, bring them back in, and take them to different work locations within the mine to keep up with production. Bird in a cage, yeah, little canaries. They would bring them in the mine like that because they had such small lungs. If there's any mine gases present, that would, if you see the bird stops chirping and, flops over, it's kind of like, time to leave. That was one thing. At a later time, 1840, Sir Humphrey Davy came up with a Davy lantern. This is just as a show purpose lantern. This is not what they really look like. They were kind of like similar. It was an open flame lamp. They had a wire mesh screen around it. That wire mesh screen, what it did is it cooled the internal flame enough that it would not ignite the gases that entered into this flame. So it was still an open flame light, but it was not, it couldn't set off the mine fires. What they would do in their shift after they would have their lantern, there was 2 gases present. One was called black damp, and the other one's called flame damp. Damp is the word, which is like if I was doing my laundry at the house and I touch the clothing in the dryer, I say, oh, the clothing's damp. Well, in that time frame, that meant Mr. Vapor. So that's why they had it black damp or flame damp. what they did, the black damp is carbon dioxide. It was actually heavier than air, it would lay to the ground. So the miner would take his light, go along the rock face that he's working, all the way down to ground level, and leave it there for a second. If the light started to go out, you guess what, there's carbon dioxide there. So they knew that they had gas at a low level. The other gas was called flame damp. That is lighter than air. That is actually methane gas, natural gas. If the person put the lantern up high and noticed the intensity of the flame would get bigger, you knew that there was natural gas, methane, flame damp was present in the mine, and you had to do something with the ventilation.
What was that? How did they fix the ventilation?
Well, basically, you'd have the guy, you would change what's called brattice. Brattice is the stuff that's back in here. Basically, they would shift the screens and stuff like that, trying to get more airflow back into that area. You know, try and get more ventilation in there than they would retest before, because it's both gases are odorless and colorless. So when it's there, you don't know it's there, you're gonna end up going down. This is the working, this is the Holmes vein. This vein of coal would run kind of like vertically up above us to the surface, dips down underneath the ground and comes up on the opposite side of the valley. A normal work day for a miner and his helper would be, you come to a location like this, you would have a couple pieces of wood that you would use for overhead bracing. You would have your drill, your pick, you know, your bar, your dynamite, and your lunch bag, you know. And then what you would do is you would scoot up in here. What your work day was basically, you would drill 10 to 12 holes, kind of like however big of a hole that you want to try and like dig out. You would drill it in somewhere up to 8 feet, 10 feet, whatever that you're running into. You would pack dynamite 4, 5, 6 in each one of those holes. In the later days, you would put an electric fuse on it, your blasting caps, wire them all together. Get out of the way down here. You would yell fire up at each one of the directions from where you're gonna blast, and then you would set your charge off. So then you would pop that surface rock that you had just drilled into out. It would actually come flying down this shaft into a battery. That's where all the material, sometimes pieces of wood, rock, everything would fly into the battery. An open car would be sitting here. One of the workers would pull the wood out of the chute. The coal and rock would fly down in here into the empty cart. When the cart was filled, you jam it back off again. Mule boy would pull the cart away, go back up in the hole and start drilling again. That was always the most dangerous, was going back up in there, because like everything's blasted. You didn't know what, it's kind of like loose, whatever else. What I would say, in the early days, there was no such thing as dynamite. In the early days, you did that same drilling, you would pack black powder into each one of those holes. You would get yourself a fuse long enough, or however fast that you could run. You would light that with your light on the front of your helmet, let it burn as you were like going in the opposite direction rather quickly, I would say. And the blast would go off. Anybody familiar with black powder? Ever seen like the pictures of those cannons? The amount of smoke that would come out of the front of those things? I could just imagine how long it took for the air to clear, you know what I mean? And that's basically what you did all day. Like I say, dynamite came out when Nobel, that's like 1870s, 1880s, somewhere in that time frame. There's always the day that it was invented, the day that it was patented, and the day that it finally gets into the work location. So if each and every one of these would want to come here, this goes up by like 80 feet. You can see what 2 people would do on a daily basis, go up into these little crevices like this with their drill, their dynamite and some wood, and that was their work location. Again, I just want to note they had no safety glasses, no leather work gloves, no earplugs, no dust masks. That's what you did. You have to get into the time frame back of the 1880s, 1890s. At that time, in that time frame, if a worker was back up in one of those shafts there and he got hurt, you have to quickly think about the Civil War time. If something happened to you, you and your worker were sitting up in there working, and somebody got rock fell down and smashed your hand, or you broke your leg, or whatever that happened to you. What would happen is your co-worker would rip a piece of your shirt off, give you a bandage, and he would sit at that work location. The mine itself would not remove you, take you out for anything, because that would cut into production. And you were less than what the value of a mule is. So they didn't really care about if you got hurt, that's where you stayed. 1880s, 1890s, an organization was formed called the, through workers slow down strikes and probably a lot of fights, they got the United Mine Workers was actually formed. So the United Mine Workers Union, workers were unionized, they were looking for three things: a standardized workday, better wages, and they were looking for a little bit of safety and health within the working conditions. What they did at that time, they actually put a little wooden shack in here, basically that the workers would be taken to a shack. There's a little cot in there, and such like that in the beginning. After World War I, which was 1918, up around 1930s, they decided that they were going to place a little bit of a hospital here. The doctor's name at the time was Dr. Young. What he would do, he actually trained other people for first aid. He was the doctor for the mines themselves. This at one time was, was painted white. There was steam, there was running water in there. In the later days, there was electricity. They had some cots in there. In the earlier times, like in the 1800s, what they had for painkillers was a jug of whiskey. You had a shot of whiskey. If you were lucky enough, that's what you had. Because in the Civil War, like the doctors, you need something amputated, they call the doctor old sawbones, because that's about what leather in your mouth.
How did they get here?
Here?
Let's say you broke your leg.
That was like I say in the late. We were in the 1900s now. 1920s, 1930s, they would actually come and bring you to this location if there was an issue with you. You know what I mean? For somewhat. That was after like the mine unionized. In those days, you had in a mine you might have Italians working in one area, and you might have had Germans working in another one. You might have some Polish people working somewhere else. Because like all the names around here, there's a ski on the end. You can't even spell the name. You know what I mean? It's just like it's what's in the area.
If they got paid by how much they produced, did they carry their own sack around, or they had a?
Well, when they were working back in this spot here, when they were going up in these little nooks and crannies, because they didn't just make all nice little holes like this. If you look at the veins of coal, I want to explain it like you have two saltine crackers, and I don't care. You want to spread jelly on that cracker, you want to put cream cheese on it, you want to put peanut butter on it, or peanut butter and jelly. I don't really care. But that's you take those two crackers on, you squish them together, right? That's the seam. That's what the coal is. The coal is between like those two crackers, and over time it gave it that squish. And that squish now, and you got to picture that these veins ran from the surface down 2,000 feet, making a turn and going out the other side of the valley. And like I was saying, the valley's from 2 to 3 miles wide at spots. So there's a lot of coal, and what they would do is like, they would have, this is like say the interstate right here. This is Interstate 80, 81, or 309, the interstate. Well now to get off onto a dirt road somewhere, guess what? You're back into what they would call around here the boonies. Same with the miners. They would be back up in there with a hammer and a chisel, a little sack. They would hammer out their coal, put it in there, crawl back to the hole, dump it down the hole, go back to where they were. And, nothing against short Irishmen, but that was probably a job, not for me, because you get me up in there, you'd be pulling me up on my ankles, 'cause I wouldn't be able to make the turn. But it was just, you know what I mean? The right man for the right job.
for me. I made that mistake. Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
How did you go?
Shazam!